Hey there, friends and enemies, JoPa here again, and today I wanted to talk about something you need to be doing in Diablo 4 Season 1, especially if you are not traditionally a PvP player, because it'll be much easier now than it will be later in the season. So, first and foremost, the Fields of Hatred are pretty much barren at lower levels when you are on World Tier 1 or 2, and it's the perfect opportunity to go farm some Seeds of Hatred if you have not already, if you wanted to get some of the cosmetics that are in there, if you wanted to get some of the altars of Lilith that are available within the Fields of Hatred as well, and have not done that already. It is an absolute wasteland, essentially, with no actual players involved. It's just all PvE right now, and that is bound to change over the course of time. We saw it after the game was initially released. It was the same thing as people were first uncovering the areas. You didn't see a lot of PvP in the game, but as time went on, everyone got towards World Tier 4. They built these insane PvP characters. You saw that these places were very difficult to do anything, essentially. You could never get your seeds to be fully taken out of the Fields of Hatred by using one of the altar of extractions, and it led you to kind of suffer if you weren't a PvP player or if you didn't have an insane build, because PvP in this game is always going to be wildly unbalanced. There's no way for them to really balance around PvP and make the game fun in a lot of other ways, unless they separated the sandbox like we see in other games. But even then, I just don't see that happening ever. And so every single season is going to be a situation where you either spec into PvP really hard, you get a build that's very good, and you one-shot everybody, or essentially you're going to get one-shot. So that is why I would highly encourage those folks who are not traditional PvP players to jump into the Fields of Hatred right now. Go get your seeds and see if you can extract with as many of them as possible, because it is going to be the time to do so. And also you can level up pretty quickly. I think it's one of the things that early on in the game I found that leveling within the Fields of Hatred has been pretty quick, so that's something to keep in mind as well. Other than that, we got some massive news from a campfire chat today that I wanted to touch on as well, because they did announce a bunch of things. The Diablo developers are unhappy with how the Season 1 patch landed. They're going to be reducing the difficulty of Nightmare Dungeons. They are going to be increasing mob density of Nightmare Dungeons, as well as other parts of the game where they really want to focus on allowing people to use their builds to maximum effect. And that's something that I think is going to be a good thing for the health of the game overall. One of the problems that we have now oftentimes is that the game just doesn't feel like you can really ramp up your builds and have just consistent waves of enemies in order to take advantage of your really fun builds. They're going to be buffing Sorcerer and Barbarian as well, which is nice. I think both of those two are underperforming right now, especially Sorcerer. I was a main of Sorcerer from the launch of the game, and while it felt solid, after this most recent patch, it definitely feels like it's been left behind. So I'm excited to see that. I think there's a bunch more information coming for the game that is going to be some other changes. We've got inventory changes and additional slots for items. We're going to have your gems and everything moving in Season 2 in towards the into its own section, so it won't take up inventory slots. Those two alone should really open up your inventory quite a bit as far as your stash goes. And then also with Season 3, we are finally going to have leaderboards and that kind of thing, which is, I believe, is going to be absolutely vital to the long-term health of this game, because in a game like Diablo, you're not really looking to push endgame in like raids and stuff like that, like you might see in MMOs. So you need an alternative way to show off how good your character is. Right now, you can beat Uber Lilith, and that's really the only major challenge you have, and people are one-shotting that. So it's not really showing off your skill. You just get the right gear, you get the perfect build, and you can one-shot the Uber Lilith and go from there. And so that's one thing I think a lot of people should keep in mind, is that The leaderboards are going to be vital towards people showing off how good their character actually is overall. And I'm excited to see how that all works and how quickly people are going to rise up the ranks and all that kind of good stuff. So I think the fire chat overall was a positive. I think the community reaction to the patch has been largely negative, but to the point where I think there was a lot of things that were missed by the player base. A lot of it seems like, oh, maybe people have not played Diablo games and seasons and ARPGs in general in the past. Because oftentimes when everything got nerfed, I assumed that the Malignant hearts, all the different hearts that we get for the season, were going to be wildly OP and really, really strong. And that's something that we've seen play out so far, is that these things are very good. Yes, they replace gem slots in many cases, but the abilities that they add can be phenomenal. And we've seen it with the Necromancer, for example, has one that is really, really good. It essentially is a free cast of your corpse skills without taking your cooldown, and stuff like that is absolutely tremendous. And it's, I think, going to be something where we see it going forward with the game as a whole, where the general game, the Eternal Realm characters are going to feel underpowered, but the seasonal characters are going to feel overpowered. So they're really pushing the seasonal characters. You can only advance the battle pass with your seasonal characters. You can only do the seasonal storyline with your seasonal characters. And your seasonal characters for that season are just flat out going to be stronger than the Eternal Realm characters because of the seasonal items. And so that's something that I think people need to keep in mind when they're talking about balance patches. They're looking at this stuff. Everyone looked at the hearts and thought they would be underwhelming, and then they got hands-on with them, and the interactions were much better than a lot of people anticipated. Some of the abilities worked in ways I think people were not expecting. Plus, you get armor as well with the hearts, and I just think in general we're seeing a lot of things within the community that is essentially a learning experience. I think this game is not in as bad a state as some people might be claiming, and I do feel like the game's future is set up pretty well overall, and I'm looking forward to getting hands-on not only deeper into Season 1, but also Season 2 and beyond, because I feel like there's a lot of potential with this game, and I hope they continue to add new content, continue to adjust the way builds perform, and buff, nerf, all that kind of good stuff to really keep the meta in a healthy place and not just have people getting bored because the same thing is strong all the time. And I do think going forward, more buffs than nerfs would be received better. So hopefully that's what they really focus on instead of nerfing everything and then things kind of feeling underwhelming for a bit. Anyway, I'd love to hear from you guys on that in general. Let me know if you are heading into the fields of hatred and capitalizing on the fact that not everyone's OP there yet. And what do you think of the fireside chat? Do you think it delivered on a lot of the things that you wanted to know about the game? Anyway, my name is JoPa. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. I'll be posting more Diablo 4 content for sure. I hope you have a good one, and I'll catch you all later.